So how does a boy who sold newspapers in a tiny coastal town become a nation's top scientist, and then its most beloved president? It sounds like fiction, right? Well, today, we're going to unpack the truly extraordinary life of APJ Abdul Kalam. It's a story of rockets, resilience, and just radical humility.
And this quote right here, it's not just some inspirational line you'd find on a poster. It was literally the blueprint for his entire life. This idea that a dream isn't just a fantasy, but it's the actual starting point for action. That's the theme we're going to see over and over again.
Every great story has a beginning. And for Kalam, it wasn't some fancy lab or a palace. No, it was in the small town of Rameshwaram, where a young boy just couldn't stop looking up at the sky.
His famous work ethic? That was forged way before he ever saw a laboratory. I mean, picture this. While other kids were still fast asleep, a young Kalam was already out there on his bike, delivering newspapers. And this daily routine, it wasn't just a job. It was his first real lesson in discipline and in duty to his family. And all that discipline, well, it definitely paid off. You can see on this timeline just how focused his journey was. From his birth in 1931, he just moved step by step towards his goal. Graduates in physics, then jumps right into aerospace engineering. Every single step was a deliberate move toward the sky. Every visionary has that one moment, that one person who sparks something. For Kalam, that spark came from his teacher, Siva Subramania Iyer. See, he didn't just teach the physics of flight from a book. He showed Kalam that the sky wasn't some kind of limit, it was a destination. And right there, that's the moment a dream started turning into a real plan. Okay, so with that foundation all set, Kalam steps onto a much, much bigger stage, India's defense and space research programs. This is where that boyhood dream of flight gets tested against the huge challenge of building a nation's technological future from the ground up. This career path is just remarkable. He starts at the DRDO, India's Defense Research and Development Organization, working on a small hovercraft. Simple enough. But then he moves to ISRO, the Indian Space Research Organization, to lead the entire project for the nation's first satellite launch vehicle. Then it's back to DRDO, but this time as the head of the whole guided missile program, which eventually leads to him playing a key role in India's nuclear tests. I mean, each step was just a massive leap in responsibility and importance for the country. This right here was a game changer. The successful launch of the Rohini satellite in 1980. That was so much more than a technical win. It was a statement. It told the entire world that India had officially arrived in the space age. And this is where he earned that famous nickname, the Missile Man of India. It came directly from his leadership of the IGMDP, the Integrated Guided Missile Development Program. Under his watch, missiles like Agni and Prithvi became the absolute foundation of India's defense strategy. And he was the chief architect behind it all.
So you go from being the nation's chief scientist to its head of state. Kalam's journey takes another, just unbelievable turn, leading him all the way to the presidency, an office that he would go on to completely redefine.
To really get the impact Kalam had as president, you have to look at what he changed. The office was traditionally, very ceremonial, very distant. Kalam just threw that whole playbook out the window. He became the people's president. He was accessible, interactive, and completely focused on inspiring the country's youth.
And he wasn't just playing a role, he lived it. Here he is living in the grandest house in the entire country, Rashtrapati Bhavan, but he kept living a life of incredible simplicity. He wasn't a president you just saw on TV. He was actually out there, in schools, in universities, talking directly to people.
This quote tells you everything you need to know about his character. This was his core philosophy, something he learned from his own mentors. When things went wrong, the leader stands up and takes the blame. But when things went right, the leader steps back and gives all the credit to their team. It's such a powerful lesson in what true leadership looks like.
So, after serving as president, most people would just retire, right? But not Kalam. He entered what was maybe the most fulfilling chapter of his life, returning to his first and greatest love.
Yeah, for Kalam, leaving the presidency wasn't about retirement. He was about getting back to his real mission. He fully embraced the role of being a teacher to the whole nation, spending his final years mentoring and just igniting the next generation of Indian thinkers and leaders.
And his teaching wasn't just happening in classrooms. He became an incredibly popular author. As you can see from this list, his books were must-reads. Wings of Fire is his amazing personal story, while India 2020 laid out this bold vision for the entire country's future. He was literally writing the manual for inspiration.
So, when you step back and look at it all, what's the lasting impact of a life like this?
Let's try to break down the core principles and achievements that really define his legacy.
You can almost think of it as the Kalam Code. And these weren't just nice ideas for him. This was his operating system. Humility, spirituality, discipline, resilience, and maybe most importantly, just this unshakable commitment to serving the nation. This code is as much his legacy as any missile or satellite he helped build.
And of course, the nation officially recognized his work again and again. As this table shows, he received India's highest civilian honors, the Padma Bhushan, then the Padma Vibhushan, and finally the Bharat Ratna in 1997. Now, what's crucial to realize is he got all this years before he became president, which just goes to show you the massive impact he'd already made.
And in a way that just felt so perfectly fitting, his life ended exactly how he lived it. He collapsed while in the middle of a lecture at an institute, surrounded by students, sharing his knowledge right up until his very last moment. He was a teacher to the very end.
Which leaves us with this final, really powerful question. APJ Abdul Kalam's life is this incredible case study in the power of a single, focused vision. From a boy dreaming of flight to a leader who shaped a nation's future, his story really challenges all of us to think about the true potential of a dream when it's backed by relentless